Well, lost in the hype for UFC 264 was a major fight announcement. In fact, breaking news on the Chimaev News Network. Khamzat Chimaev has his next fight booked for UFC 267, October 30th, against the Leech, Li Jingliang. Right? No, I butchered it. Damn it. Well, we'll let Drake take it from there. But anyway,
Jingliang.
Jingliang. There it is. There it is.
I gave you the shove and you
Yeah,
ran with it.
yeah, yeah. Yes, I
Anyway,
did. Anyway, so Chimaev is making his first walk to the octagon since his battle with COVID. Right, he had several high-profile fights that were booked and then fell off. He was supposed to fight Leon Edwards, was going to get that main event push. It seemed like very quickly. Now he's taking a step back, fighting someone where honestly he probably should be fighting rankings-wise and having to take off as much time as he did for the illness. He's also no longer with Dominance MMA, as Ali Abdelaziz did confirm that he's no longer under Dominance MMA management. So, Drake, lots of news here about our boy on the Chimaev News Network. First of all, tell me, do you like this matchup?
love it. I love this fight. I think that this is excellent. And as good as it still is, you could even argue that it's still a little bit too much for Hamzat because, Jingliang is number 12, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. He is not like 15 or something, which is what I would have thought kind of if you were going to give him a ranked guy, it would have been somebody right around, that 15, 14, but 12 isn't the hugest. It's not a huge difference, but still a little bit higher. But either way, much more appropriate than the number 3 ranked guy, which we were going to see there with Leon Edwards. And curious to get your thoughts on this, Pat, after I'm done sharing my thoughts, but maybe if this had something to do with the lack of Ali and not being able to position himself for that anymore, because Ali generally gets what he wants, it would seem, just if we were to look at history. But either way, Hamzat versus Jingliang, I think this is a fantastic fight, a fantastic test for Hamzat in terms of closer to where he is right this moment, a matchup that is one that is winnable for him, but also is a great test. As we've seen, Jingliang is danger on the feet, has fantastic leg kicks, has knockout power, just took out Ponzinibbio his last time out. But then before that, got a little bit manhandled by Magny, which in theory, Hamzat should be able to do. In theory, right? I mean, he's got the credentials. He's shown that against much lesser competition, along with his own knockout power at middleweight against Mearshart his last time out. And the fact that this is at welterweight is nice, that he's going to make the climb here, even though, as we've said in the past, would prefer, and maybe middleweight needs him a little bit more. Good to see him make up his mind here and now taking on Jingliang, who will be a big push or a big deal for him to, anybody who can be the first guy to beat Chimaev, no matter how long it's been, would be a big deal. And I think he has a great opportunity. I'm curious to know what maybe these opening odds are, if they're out yet, Pat, and maybe we can pull these up throughout the video. But I think Jingliang has a very good chance, as does Hamzat, but there's still so many unknowns about Hamzat that I do lean towards Jingliang a little bit. But again, even before we started right here, we were talking about the Matthews fight a little bit, which was in 2018, and he's had numerous fights since then, but we've seen him taken down, and generally in his losses he gets taken down. So
yeah,
on the feet he should be able to do fine in theory, right? See how Chimaev can deal with a pretty legit striker like him, like the Leech. But then on the ground, that's where we've seen he's susceptible. So I think this is pretty much stylistically a perfect test for both guys, really, at these current stages in their career.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think this makes a lot of sense, especially with Chimaev coming back from COVID and having such terrible complications with it. This is going to be a fight where if he's going to have to take down the Leech, several times, he's going to have the cardio for it. And so this will really put that to the test unless he can get a quick finish. In terms of odds, did manage to find some odds at the open. It was negative 260 for Chimaev, plus 210 for Lee. Yeah, so
how about that?
Yeah, not crazy odds. Kind of, In fact, I would even say that's a little bit surprising given Chimaev's lack of, competition in his resume and him being out so long. But and especially with the way the Leech has looked. I mean, he got that huge knockout over Ponzinibbio. Yeah, that's a surprising one.
If I was a bettor, I myself, wink, wink, would throw some down on the Leech here for those odds. But
I
you
think,
can.
I think I might too. Or someone I know might too. Who knows? But with that all being said, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier, which I agree wholeheartedly with and truly believe it's the reason why Chimaev is fighting the Leech, and it's because he's left dominance MMA. We've talked about Ali's, power and influence within the MMA sphere. And, we have pieces on thebodylock.com you can read. A great piece by Mike Fidel talking about his relationship with PFL and how he's done everything. We also have seen lately a lot of, new interviews and bits of information that have leaked out from the business side talking about how managers will often throw their clients under their bus in order to gain influence with the UFC. And Ali has, I don't think he's done that per se, but I think he's got to the point now where he has so much influence within the UFC and he has Dana's ear that he's able to get his guys pushed much higher, much farther, much faster, right? That's a huge part of this. That's why a lot of name fighters sign with dominance, is because of what Ali is able to get done. So with Chimaev no longer being in that circle, I'm not shocked at all that he's getting a lower opponent. And again, an opponent that makes more sense for him anyway. And, if he comes out and just steamrolls Lee and all of a sudden, old Chimaev is back or never really left, right? Even despite everything that happened, he just looks like the guy that, turned around 2 massive finishes in 10 days or whatever. Then I'm sure the UFC will push him because that will get more attention back on him. We've seen the social media metrics. We've seen the hype that surrounded him during that run. A big win over the Leech, I think he's right back up there, and the UFC can't really deny him. They will certainly push him, especially with a win over the number 12 ranked guy, because then they can justify, all right, well, now we're going to put you up against number 3 or number 2 or what have you. We've seen them do that before. Cody Garbrandt, perfect example of that. So I think this matchup is downright perfect to see where Chimaev is at, given all the changes in his camp and what he's had to go through with COVID and all of that. And I think this is a massive opportunity still for the Leech, where if he gets a finish, if he's able to be the first guy to take out Chimaev, I feel like people won't give him his due credit, where a lot of people will say, oh, like Chimaev was just overhyped and this kind of proves it. But it still will be a nice feather in his cap, and it's a good way for him to position himself for a higher ranked guy the next fight around. So I like the fight a lot. I think it's the right fight to make at this time, and I'm excited for it. I think it's gonna be a great stylistic matchup, and I could easily see a finish, early on between one of the guys.
Yeah, definitely. And, throwing this one on to UFC 267. What is that? The day before my birthday over in Fight Island, with 2 title fights on there already, or likely to be, right? Blachowicz and Teixeira, and then Aljamain and Peter Yan rematch, along with Hebus versus Werner Jandiroba at strawweight. Very good matchups there. This card looking good early on. And it's interesting, Pat. Like, I think that if we're going to go back to UFC 264, which just happened this past Saturday at the time of recording, the fact that Gilbert Burns beat Wonderboy helps both of these guys. More so Khamzat if he wins, because like you said, do a little bit maybe of a Cody Garbrandt fast track. And I'm not saying that if he goes out there and wins, especially impressively as he has done in his last 3 UFC fights, that they give him Burns right away. But I don't know if I'd be surprised by it. I don't know if I'd be shocked.
No, I think that's the matchup to make. Yeah, I think if he goes out there and he steamrolls, just steamrolls over Lee, and then you end up with a scenario where he gets on the mic and talks some trash and, gets that hype train going again, Burns is absolutely the guy you put him up against, because that's a fight that could easily determine a number one contender to fight Usman again. And it's someone with enough legitimacy that, and stylistically would kind of favor, I think, Chimaev a little bit. You could put him up against a Wonder Boy. You could put him up against somebody else. But I think if Chimaev looks as good as he did prior to COVID in this next fight, I think Burns is gonna be in a little bit of a interesting position, because Burns can get hit, right. We've seen Burns get hit. Wonder Boy, even, that was a closer fight that a lot of people are willing to admit, in terms of if Wonder Boy just avoids one of those takedowns, he could have easily won that decision. And he was hitting Burns at some points, and hittable guys for somebody with Chimaev's power is always a good matchup, especially up at the higher echelon, because it's going to be much harder to knock out Wonder Boy or someone of that nature, right? So I think that is probably what they'll do if Chimaev comes back and looks dominant. If Chimaev gets a decision win, if he kind of makes it look sloppy, then I would imagine you give him a little bit of a slower build, because again, he's not going to have the same type of Ali in his corner pushing that he needs to.
Then you do Magny.
There you go. Then you do Magny. Makes a bunch of sense.
There's still Leon out there too.
Oh, there is. Oh god. But Leon probably deserves the next title shot after. You think so? Does. But who knows? Who knows how that goes? Like, subscribe, bell notification. You know what to do. Make sure you drop any comments about how you feel about this matchup. Do you think that this is the right matchup to make for both men? How do you see this fight going? Do you think Chimaev is going to come back, like his old self? Do you think he'll be affected by COVID? Is the fact that he's not rep by Ali anymore going to affect where he goes from here in his career? Let us know all your thoughts and comments. And CNN signing off for tonight, but we will be back. You best believe we'll be back for fight week, not talking about any of these title fights or whatever Drake was talking about. Whatever. No, we'll be talking about this fight right here.